You got to go where the money is. I mean, that's a heads up businessman, I think, is what you just described.
Right.
He was
Yeah.
shitting on his friend's chest when it was important to be able to shit on your friend's chest, and now he's doing stuff for kids because that's where the money at.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I never had friends that shit on me. Welcome to the Rewatchers on the Pod, where there will be, hopefully, no blood. This week we watched There Will Be Blood. I'm Mitchell Marshall here, along with my co-hosts in order of their positioning from north to south.
Tyler Harris.
Gwen Hammer?
Justin Hammer.
Tyler McKinley.
You guys are in houses next door to each other, but I don't actually know direction-wise. Oh, that was
my
fun.
favorite was the pause before Gwen because it was trying to figure out if they were if Justin or her was more north at that moment, that was great.
You know what? I think we got it wrong too. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think we did.
No. We called the cops on my other neighbors this week, and they are south of us. So that means we are south of you because we did not know their address.
Yeah, but
No, Justin and I got our position wrong.
yeah, because I'm on the north side of the house right now.
Ah,
Yeah.
Don't
there we
tell
go.
them that.
Oh, okay.
now the snipers will get you for sure.
The COVID snipers.
Our stream snipers.
Wait, why did you call the cops on your neighbors?
It's been a long time coming.
Was this before or after I texted you about how big of a morons your neighbors are?
It was after. They had like a huge party with like tons of people over. And then
Wow.
that night they were outside talking, and their backyard's like right outside my window. And they do it a lot, but the problem is I never called the cops before because they come out for about 15 minutes, then they go back inside for 20, then come back out for 15 and repeat that until 4 a.m. So it's like, I also don't want to call the cops too much because I'm like, oh, it's the McKinleys again, just calling us, the crazy.
Are they loud and drinking or party? Is it like partying or is it just like they had a bunch of people over and that's stupid?
Well, they had a bunch of people over and it was stupid. And they were loud during the day, but like at night, they're loud enough that I can't sleep because it's right outside my window.
Mm.
And it goes until 4 a.m. Like they're not like blasting the speakers or anything, but it's loud enough. So I've been waiting for my moment. And I had just had enough at that point that day, so I was like, "It's happening today."
They definitely know it's you, right? Who called the cops?
Probably.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Did they also have like a prom event later this same week? Because there was a ton of cars again, and then there was like a girl in a prom dress being helped into a car.
That was
presumably
something
coming
else
from that
entirely.
house.
Yeah, what the hell? I don't know. The two interactions I've had with them at their door, actually technically 3, have all been very negative and me being very confrontational. So, I mean, I'm happy to be like, hey, I called the cops. Fuck you. So,
And there's your weekly dose of suburban drama. I really do enjoy that. Okay. So we watched There Will Be Blood, widely regarded as one of the masterpieces of the last probably century. Like when you talk about modern movies that should be in the Pantheon, it's definitely up there. And so, Justin, give us a summary of what happened.
Whew. All right. Here we go. Whew. It's my first time. I'm feeling the butterflies. All right.
Just shatter that summary, Hyman. You got it.
If you need
that
us
doesn't
to
help at
call
all.
anyone, no, it really does not.
Okay. There be sparking pickaxes in this here hole in the ground. Spit, wipe, stick. Boom! Finger wagging. Oh shit! My leg! Spit, heave, ho! Fuck doctors, gotta get rich, bitch! Urukai ain't gonna birth themselves, and that guy's brains probably make the oil blend a little smarmier. Congratulations, you just won a free baby. Daniel Day-Lewis is the manliest and oiliest of all the oil men. Rawr, rawr, angry yelling. A wild Paul Dano appears. He uses sellout. It's super effective. Mr. Plainview, aka Daniel Day-Lewis, and his boy go on a walkabout. This dumbass farmer doesn't have any bread. Oh, what the fuck? It's Paul Dano again. Excuse me, Dano. His name is Eli? I thought he said it was Paul. Am I having deja vu? How can there possibly be two people the same age that look, I don't know, identical? Pew, pew, pew. Ew, gross. The earth barfed up some black shit. Mr. Plainview Jr. got some on his boots. Eli/Paul knows about the goddamn oil, damn it. He wants $10,000 for the land his dad owns so he can build a church? Mr. Plainview does not like this. Eli wants to pray, but Mr. Plainview does not like that either. Ruh-roh. Oh, lordy, these wide shots. Mr. Plainview is buying up everybody's land in the area. A town meeting is called, and we hear his oil man speech again. These people are going to have so much bread, it's going to be coming out of their ears. What good is bread without a road that goes directly to the church, wonders Eli. The drilling begins, and Daniel breaks a promise to that religious nutjob, Eli. Oh, man, another dude makes brain oil stew. OSHA really needs to OSHA really needs to do something about these work sites. Eli gets handsy with Mrs. Hunt. Oh, god damn it. Eli gets handsy with Mrs. Hunter's handsies. One goddamn hell of a show, says Daniel. Somebody call OSHA for fuck's sake. The well's on fire, and holy shit, this entire sequence is incredible. HW is definitely not okay. Eli decides to go ask Daniel when the church can expect the money that was promised. Eli gets his ass kicked by Daniel. Eli tells his father Abel how stupid he is for letting Daniel come and take their land. Eli might need his ass kicked some more. Henry Plainview, Daniel's self-proclaimed brother from another mother, shows up to inform Daniel that their father is dead. They have a lovely little chat over stew and tea. Henry has done unspeakable things, but he definitely didn't do whatever he got thrown in jail for the last time. Whew. Daniel tells Henry he hates everyone as they sit around a campfire. HW is feeling a little cold and decides the best course of action is to light the entire cabin on fire. Daniel sticks a little shit on a train to who knows where as a result, because that's what a good father does. Daniel and Henry meet with some big businessmen. Daniel tells one of them he's going to come to him one night and cut his throat. This is kind of crazy, but secretly we kind of get it, right? Oh yeah, Daniel forgot to meet with that one guy who never sold him his property. Also, Al, you stupid dumb bitch, we can't build oil pipe around 50 miles of mountains. Some quality half-brotherly beach time bonding. Just kidding, Henry's an imposter and Daniel blows his fucking brains out. No worries, that old guy who owns the land Daniel still needs to buy so he can rebuild his pipeline wakes Daniel up the following morning and offers him a deal he can't refuse. Just get baptized into Eli's congregation. And what a glorious baptism it is. Daniel is clearly repentant, bathed in the blood of Christ, and totally not going to murder Eli the first chance he gets. Ta-da, a pipeline. And HW returns. Daniel tells HW how much he loves him, and HW returns the affection by punching Daniel in the stomach. Eli's going on a mission, aka getting the fuck out of here because he just baptized a murderous mustachioed maniac. Let's do the time warp again. HW and Mary Sunday Girl get married. More time warping. Daniel's getting old and has opened an impromptu shooting gallery in one of the hallways of his super mansion. HW is here, but he's going to Mexico with Mary to start his own drilling company. Daniel really hates sign language. Also, he really, really hates competition. And surprise, HW finds out he's not actually Daniel's son. Bastard from a basket. What a feel-good movie about the relationship of a man and his adopted son. But wait, there's more. Eli's back and still weird as fuck. He's been working in radio. He's got an offer for Daniel. Eli's asking for a lot of money. Daniel wants him to say he's a false prophet and that God is a superstition. Eli is a false prophet and God is a superstition. Daniel's already drank up everything on the bandy tract of land. Eli needs a friend. Drainage. Milkshakes and straws, the most intense bowling match it has ever been. Bonk, bonk, the end.
Beautiful.
So beautiful.
That's wonderful.
Okay, so that was There Will Be Blood. Ooh. And I mean, the entire title of the movie is just talking about the very last scene where there was good blood.
Yeah, it really buries the lead on that one. I mean, in retrospect, the title kind of feels like Paul Thomas Anderson being like, "Don't worry, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. There will be blood eventually. We'll get there. We'll get there." And then they finally do, and it's fine. It's fine.
The studio made him cut the eventually from the title. They just felt like it was a little too convoluted for marketing purposes, especially because it's based on. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you have the Blu-ray copy, it actually wraps around to the back of the insert. So it actually on the paper, if you pull it out, it does say There Will Be Blood, and then you follow it and it says eventually on the inside. So he did finally get his full title in there, but it was only on the Blu-ray release. So concessions have to be made.
Most people went to see this movie in theaters thought they were seeing a sequel to the Saw franchise. So
It is a little misleading in that way. So it is partially based on a book called Oil! Exclamation point, but they felt it wasn't based on it enough to use that title. But that would have been just beautiful to see on a poster. Just oil, classic America. But I kind of want to start with our favorite sequences. This movie is made of some very long moments or long things that you kind of have to read between the lines. They don't overly tell you about some of the ups and downs of the business or the life, but the bowling thing was, other than the fact that the phrase brother from another mother is actually uttered in this movie, the bowling is my favorite part. So I just want to know, what sequences do you guys think are most
You really
indicative of
are
why
missing
it's so good?
sports, aren't you, Mitchell? You really just will take sports in any form you can get, huh?
Look,
Wait,
I'm
are
not
we-
saying that I'm betting on fake horse racing, but I'm thinking it. It may
Are
be
we-
on that Animal Crossing game. I don't know.
Are we asking Justin why he picked the movie?
Oh, I forgot this was his official selection. Justin, why did you pick this movie? And then tell us what sequence, what scene or sequence moment stands out the most to you.
All right. So the reason I chose this movie, I kind of talked about this a little bit on our year-end podcast that we did, where I talked about how Breaking Bad was one of the first shows that I really felt like was like my show. Like I chose to watch it out of like my own sense of morality or whatever. Because growing up in a fairly conservative family, a show like Breaking Bad would have been something that I could not have watched as a kid. And There Will Be Blood was kind of like one of those, was like the movie I feel like that was my movie that I chose to watch because it was like something I genuinely wanted to watch and felt like I could. It's kind of the same time frame, I guess. So because of that, it is sort of I mean, obviously it's a very important work of art and a really important movie. But for me personally, it's important too, just because of that time frame in my life that I was going through, everything associated with that. So this movie means a lot to me, and I'm lucky enough that this movie is so good, and it also means a lot to me. So I was really excited that we were getting to choose movies that we enjoy, because this one, it's like, I don't know if it's my favorite movie, but it is definitely up there and in the running for one of my favorites. Um, Even though I haven't watched it very much, but yeah, it's just it's so good. I don't get sick thinking about it. I love the pacing. I especially love the finale of this movie, which I think might be one of the things that people don't necessarily like about this movie. I love all of this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie that it has a ton of growth, but I don't think that it has the most not, I don't want to say well thought out, but the most organized arcs. But that's almost what is really cool about it, is it's more of an observance of this man's, his thought process, his philosophies, and how they in some ways make his life great and in some ways absolutely destroy his life. And so it's almost more of a long-term observance. And I think the time jump kind of surprises you, because I think at the time you're kind of wondering, well, are we going to hear about the real impact of the pipeline? Like, it just works. And I think that is one thing that I wondered. I was like, this is a massive pipeline, and we're just gonna be like, yeah, it worked out and now he's super rich. But then to see where it ends up, I think is important. And so I was a little thrown off, and Paul Dano does seem kind of the same age, but other than that, like, I think it's a great ending. But I have read a Reddit theory that they think it might be a hallucination, but that seems to have been shot down. But Tyler, what do you guys think? Is that a satisfying conclusion to this life that we've seen kind of sketched out?
I definitely think it is. It's definitely also one of the things that I love about the movie. It's kind of a descent into madness, if you will, kind of tale. Because in my opinion, at the beginning of the movie, there's nothing inherently evil about Daniel Plainview, at least that we are a witness to. It is just seems like a very smart businessman at first. And he even seems to have some good qualities about him, but then as the movie progresses, he becomes worse and worse in his his competition in himself to better the people next to him and his fellow men, and gain more and more and more. And it's just more the success and the thrill of beating someone, until we see kind of where that ends up. And where that inevitably ends up is you're always unsatisfied. You're never going to achieve everything. You're never going to, be the pinnacle of that. So it's always going to be there. It's always going to be something on your back that's just going to drive you crazy. And we see that at the end very much like it's presented more in a way than most other movies, like a mirror of a first act, where the first act we're kind of establishing the daily life of a character. At the end, it's kind of the same thing. We're establishing what daily life is now like for Daniel Plainview after quote unquote accomplishing his goals. And now he's just constantly drunk, constantly miserable, always angry. His relationships are in tatters, and he's in a horrible place. And something I noticed on this view through is that mirrored representation is shown in a visual way through his signature. Because in the first act of the film, you see him sign his signature, and it's very clean and it's very neat. And at the very end, you see him sign his signature, and it's just smeared and messy and gross, and just like his life. So I think it's a wonderful place to end it, and very kind of not necessarily fully unique, but the way they do it and show it is unique to this film, I feel like.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I think that the way that we watch that descent, and like Tyler was saying, like the idea that we may not like Daniel Plainview at the beginning, like he might not be our guy that we'd hang out with, but he's not a bad guy by any means. I mean, he basically takes that kid in, like at the beginning and all that, and like those, like we get the sense that he is driven and tethered to some sense of duty, which then is argued. I think you could argue that maybe replaced at some point in the film with his need to conquer and to have more and more and more. But yeah, I think for me, I was shy. I remember hearing someone like right after I'd seen this movie pretty down say they didn't like the ending, and it like blew my mind for someone not to, anyways. But yeah, I think it's such a great depiction of that. And Daniel Day-Lewis, I've just got a hot take. He's like a pretty good actor, so like I think he does an okay job with the text. And you know what? We're probably gonna get blown up for that, but fuck him. Daniel Day-Lewis is great. I'll say.
You can at him in his mentions, please. Abuse.
I'll hit him up on his very active Twitter and Instagram accounts that I'm sure exist.
Have you guys seen that video of Tarantino when I don't know why or what movie they were talking to him about, but there's a clip of them interviewing Tarantino and asking him about his thoughts on There Will Be Blood and Daniel Day-Lewis's performance. And I mean, he kind of says like how he all feels. Like there's no need to blow any more smoke up this guy's ass. Like we all know that like the sun shines and that Daniel Day-Lewis is great and There Will Be Blood. He's like, but the thing that like really won me over from his performance is in that first sequence, which is one of my favorite sequences, by the way. There's no dialogue. It's just kind of establishing character without, telling you, it's showing. And he says that, when he gets what he's going for, whatever, I don't know if it's silver or whatever it is that he's getting at the beginning. After, he hurts his leg like really badly. And he's just kind of sliding along the ground. The camera kind of pans up, and there is no civilization for a while. And you're led to believe that this man scooted the entire way, all the way back to civilization. And he's like, and just from Daniel Day-Lewis's performance in those opening moments, you have zero doubt that that man is capable of that, and that his determination and his just fervor is going to get him there. Like you don't question it or scoff at it. Like you fully buy into it.
Maybe that's why Daniel Day-Lewis stopped acting, is because he was like, I'm just going to keep descending further and further down, just like Daniel Plainview, because I'm just too good. My relentlessness is eventually I'm going to kill someone with a bowling ball. Or a bowling pin. I think it's a pin by the end.
It's a
Yeah. Yeah.
Much less egregious crime attacking someone with a pen.
I just wanted to comment, like, I really want to know what was going through the whoever was in charge of casting when they saw like the character names for this movie. Like, we need somebody named Paul and we need somebody named Daniel, or rather, those are the characters that we have, and who can we get to play a Paul and a Daniel?
They're like,
And
we really lucked out that one of the greatest actors in the world has a first name Daniel, huh?
right, yeah,
I actually want to talk about that opening sequence just a little bit, because I think it was interesting watching this, just like a week separated from Eternal Sunshine, and we talked about that a lot in the podcast. Like the production of Eternal Sunshine and like the camera tricks they used and things like that. And that's one of the things I love about Eternal Sunshine is watching that movie and seeing those things, and it feels so guerrilla, and it's so cool. It feels like it's breaking so many conventions. And then watching something like I will be blood. There will be blood. Like where within the first 10 minutes, like it looks like it's like some of the most beautiful filmmaking I've ever seen, and I don't think about them making it at all. Like it feels incredibly effortless in a way that frustrates the fuck out of me. Like it makes me angry that someone can do that with film. And like they're like even just those first 10 minutes are so insane. Like we talked about there being no dialogue. You could strip the sound out of that and have like a fucking amazing, just like silent story of this guy getting hurt. Like it's gorgeous. But then with the score in there, like, I don't know. It's like it's one of the most amazing, I think, compositions of film, because it just like that music tells like I don't even know what I'm trying to say. I'm so flustered by this fucking opening, but like just the fact that it tells you this story, and then the music adds this second layer of just like dread and foreshadows this horrible ending that is coming, is so insane to me. Like it's such a beautiful opening.
It really does a good job of building tension in the seemingly like mundane, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of my experience with this movie in general. This was the movie that kind of got me into appreciating film as art. Because I started watching, I'm like, this movie is boring as hell, but I can't look away. Like, I can't stop watching. And I think it's because this movie is the perfect culmination of all the artistic departments that make a movie. The music is incredible and unique. The cinematography is breathtaking. The acting is just stunning. The script is, I mean, I think there's stronger scripts out there, but I think this is still a really strong script, and it is all just works together so beautifully. And the editing, everything works together in its own artistic way to make something beautiful. And I think the music is definitely one of the more unique things about, all those categories. And side note, it is, I believe, the guitarist of Radiohead who did this soundtrack for this.
Yeah, I think so. I need to double check, but yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Johnny Greenwood, who has done a couple Paul Thomas Anderson movies. I believe he did the music for Inherent Vice and Phantom Thread as well.
I didn't know he did those either. I still haven't seen Inherent Vice.
It looks like he also did The Master, so
oh, okay. Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. One thing I want to say, when you talk about all those different elements, as far as like the acting, the production, they all came together really well, but I also think none of them were overly complicated. I think you just talk about Paul Thomas Anderson having such a great grasp of, whatever was his vision versus, his production designer, and letting those individual visions come together and create something really incredible. Because like the script didn't need to be great. I think it was somewhat true to the time in the way that these people looked and felt in maybe less complex ways, maybe slower ways. And that's the thing is, I know where this movie could get boring, but I never felt like it was quite slow. And I think that first scene is indicative of, you're kind of enraptured by it so early, and then big events happen pretty often. So even though you're going to get a quiet moment with these characters, then something's going to go off. I remember seeing the oil explosion in a film class like 8 or 9 years ago, and that is it's a big deal, but at the same time it's really more of a catalyst, and it doesn't seem to me to be bigger, even though it's bigger as a set piece, than the little emotional explosions that we get along the way. But yeah, it's also well done, and did find out a couple quick cast things that were pretty interesting. The kid who played HW never acted before or again. Oh, yeah. And they shot most of the scenes with Eli with another actor, and it just didn't work. So they had to go back, and I read like 5 different reasons why it didn't work, but Paul Dano actually had to, in 4 days, learn that part and go back and reshoot all those scenes. So kind of incredible, like, that those two things lined up that work perfectly as performances for something as expansive and complicated as a movie like this.
Yeah. My favorite part about those is the kid who plays HW, because in the stuff I've read, it was very much like, well, we're not gonna get a kid who's ever acted before. We're just gonna go to Texas where they know how to shoot guns because we want a kid who lives that rustic lifestyle. So they went to a school and they just basically like asked the principal for like I guess they maybe explain some things about the character or something, but the principal's like, I know a kid. And then they just got this, they just got HW, who just has a perfectly inquisitive look about him.
That's a great description.
Well, I think he's from the town where they were shooting, which apparently No Country for Old Men shot there around the same time as well, which is kind of crazy because that's what beat this movie out for the best picture at the Oscars.
And it was the other movie that Justin was deciding between.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That's kind of crazy.
I heard after both those films wrapped shooting that God just reached down and took that town into his bosom, and no one's ever seen it again.
Enoch, Texas.
That's why that kid hasn't acted since then.
Yeah,
he's in heaven.
Traded in his gun for a harp.
Yeah.
Another tidbit I saw was that the mansion they shot in. Okay, this has a few layers to it. So we talked about how this movie is based on the book Oil by Upton Sinclair from 1926. But that, like Mitchell said, Paul Thomas Anderson sort of started writing it and adapting it, and then about a fifth of the way in just decided, you know what, I'm going to run with what I've got and change it completely. But there's a lot of like thematic things, and basically the character from the book, who Daniel Plainview is based on, who has another name in the book, the real life person who that book character is based on, his name, let me see if I can find it. His name was Edward Doheny, and the mansion they filmed it in was Edward Doheny's like estate, like his family owns it.
Wow.
And they filmed that, that bowling alley scene, the whole house, that's all his. And he was a real life oil tycoon.
Wow, that's super cool.
Interesting that they went with Plainview, the most normal sounding name of all time.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else cool I found about that. No, not really. That was about all the book stuff I found.
I wanted to, hopefully you're okay with this, I wanted to ask Gwen what she thought about things. I tried to talk to her about it a little bit after we finished watching. She said she needed a little bit of time. Have you had enough time to think about things and how you feel about this movie? Are you there? I can't hear you if you are. Oh.
I can't hear anything either.
Nope.
Is her mic muted?
You might be muted.
How about now?
Yeah,
there you are.
Oh,
Gotcha.
Okay. Apparently only one alt works to make me talk. Anyways, we need to start watching earlier in the week because I feel very big feelings about this movie, but I just don't have my words around it yet. But my favorite part of the entire movie was that shot when they're first coming to California, and it's the train tracks, and you're waiting for the train, and then the car comes down the road instead. That something about that I just fell in love with. So that's all the words I really have right now. But yeah, I loved that, just that little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a shot the first time I saw it. That shot also stuck out to me. That was when I was like, oh, whoa. There's something actually about filmmaking and like being behind a camera that matters.
Yeah. I love I think for me this movie there's a lot in this movie about like cultural transition and stuff like that, and that shot is like one of the things that sticks out to me in respects to that. Like it feels constructed for me on like on my viewing around that theme, and even connecting to, like, for me at the end of the movie, that moment, or the bowling alley scene, that all speaks to this idea of like kind of America in transition, but not necessarily transitioning to something entirely different. Like, to me, I feel like Daniel and Eli are the same, essentially, right? They at their core, they are kind of the same person. Like, they are different people outwardly, and are pursuing different things, but very much they are about getting more and more and more. And the fact that at the end of this movie we have essentially, in the most general sense, oil killing religion as the power of the day, essentially feels very poignant, I guess. And also the idea of that shot with just those train tracks that have built the country, and now this car coming. It's just, I love. To me, that theme runs throughout this movie, and I don't know. That's just one of those things that sticks out to me that I love. But
Yeah, I agree. I also I didn't even think about this, but that the conclusion where Eli comes and is basically, he ends up begging for money at that point, and he talks about not being able to foresee the depression that was going on, and like it just like that hit me really hard because of what we're dealing with right now in this country. And it's like, it's weird to be in the middle of a major historical event. Because like, luckily it hasn't really impacted me very much right now. But I know that there are people who this is going to really mess up, and it currently is messing up a lot of stuff for people in our country, around the world. And just to see an event that historically is such a big deal, and we may be living through something like that as well right now. I wonder what, if any, movies are going to be made about what we're living through right now in the future. What kind of artistic representations will come out of that? Like, it's just kind of interesting to be looking back at something that we might be experiencing to maybe a lesser degree, maybe not. I don't know right now as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of good bottle episodes are going to come out of this, but no, in all seriousness, it's interesting to think of it that way, and to look at the commentary around it, because the way that the way he had no idea about the depression, that doesn't surprise me. There's just not that much education on it, but for us, it's almost a matter of too much information, and the fact that we're always being told by someone or another on either side of an economic opinion that something is coming. But to think that we could be facing times that are just so different from what we expect the world to go to. And then you kind of, in times like that, see people's true colors. Like, we obviously live in a really polarized place. But when you talk about both of them being similar characters with different life philosophies, I think when things get difficult, your life philosophy is only magnified. I was thinking of the comparison between them, and then you kind of have Jack and Locke from Lost, and how you have a man of science and a man of faith. And in this case, you kind of have a man of money and a man of faith, and they both turn out to be pretty nasty and be able to forsake whatever it takes to meet their own ends. And so, you know, maybe everyone out there be a little introspective and think about what would you do, you know?
Yeah. I get that.
I'm gonna go start digging in my backyard.
Hey, we just had that earthquake. We might have some
Oh.
earthquake oil back there. You want to check on that for sure. Definitely.
I do love how many themes this movie can cover without feeling convoluted or overwhelming at all. Because I think there are commentaries on religion, there's commentaries on capitalism, there's commentaries on just industrial progression. A theme I really noticed this time while watching it was kind of this theme of either separated or abandoned or problematic relationships between fathers and sons.
Sure.
Because there are quite a few examples. Like you have, the fact that HW's father is killed at the beginning, which embarrassingly I've always apparently missed. Like,
really?
Because there's the whole thing at the end, which like I knew all about all this. It's just I guess I missed the fact that dude, like I thought he had already been adopted for some reason, and that was just like one of his workers watching his adopted son the whole time.
Yeah, you can't really tell who's who in that first part. So that it took me a while, but I caught it, but later in the film, but before it really points it out.
Yeah, but anyway, I mean, you have that. You have, Daniel's own contempt for his father, who we never really see, but he talks about. We've got, when HW is sent away, we have Eli, his confrontation with his father and his opinion of his father. We have his brother Paul, supposedly his brother, who let's talk about that afterwards, because holy shit. But yeah, like Paul kind of selling out his family and leaving and not being there, and then like kind of coming to a culmination in the point where during the baptism scene where we get that big breaking climactic point of Daniel just being like, I've abandoned my boy, which has so many fucking layers to that acting right there. But yeah, there's just this weird interesting theme of abandoning or being abandoned, some sort of clash with a father figure, and just with the tones of religion. I think there's some other things that can be kind of gleaned from that and thought about through the other themes of the film, and how all the greed and competition and killing one's brother and all that different stuff is it like very biblical in a sense, and kind of mirrors some of those themes found through the Christian text and some of the Jewish texts as well.
Yeah.
Related to that, specifically the baptism scene, and then thinking about this movie as an art piece that's commentary without conclusion or just observation even. I really appreciated how they, at least I felt like they set up the preacher to be in a position to take revenge and really mess up Daniel's plans for the pipeline through that particular piece of land. And they set it up, they pitched it, and then it didn't happen. And the fact that it didn't happen felt really good to me. Like, not that I thought that the preacher was then a good person, just setting up this dramatic moment and then not delivering for some reason felt so good in this particular movie.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things if you want to look into the logistics of a story, and maybe it's because I've been watching so much TV, but all these little conflicts or things that could have gotten in his way, I really was like, okay, how does the movie take a dramatic turn? But also it's really about his confrontation to make sure he gets this pipeline bill or he gets this deal done with these people. Because I will say, when they offered him $1 million, I was like, take that shit and run, bro. But it continues to be about this guy, and it doesn't need to examine all those things in details. It really is just these separate incidences that connect just enough, but really we're just needing to see where this character goes, and just enough of his counterpart, of his kind of foil, as it were, in Eli to get those feelings. So I normally do get frustrated when some things aren't logically tied in, and I think that they're given such clear payoffs emotionally that I don't need the actual story behind them, and it's pretty clever to do, and something you don't really notice until you look back on it. I am curious, like Gwen was saying, how I'll feel about this in 2 weeks, or if I watch it again in a month and then wait another month, like where it really sits. But it is just beautiful to watch for sure.
Yeah, I think that on some things like that, you know, there's also some just character building and weird motivational things. Like I think Eli, you know, just wants to know what that power feels like, to have it dangling over Daniel's head, you know, watch him squirm a bit, because he hasn't been in that position throughout the whole movie really. And I think he enjoys being in that for the brief moment that he is, and wants to try and lengthen that out. But then the film kind of jumps. But
Okay,
was this your oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted to follow up on what you said about Eli and Paul. There was something you were going to mention about those two.
Well,
And
no,
I think I
mean,
know where you're going, but
yeah, well, I
might be a
think
different
Mitchell
subject.
mentioned it earlier. Is like there's the way the movie presents it. It's really hard to tell if they're supposed to be the same person or not.
Right. Yeah.
Or if there's some sort of like, I mean, there almost feels something that feels very supernatural even about Paul when he's first introduced, and then is just gone for the rest of the movie. Or something just more weird and ethereal about him. And the first time I saw it, I didn't fully understand what was going on between the relationship between those two characters. It was on the second viewing that I was like, oh, they're supposed to be brothers, I think. And then I read more about it, and they're supposed to be like, yeah, like twins.
Mhm.
But I think just from what the movie presents, it doesn't do the greatest job of establishing that. And you
Yeah,
could
I was gonna ask, is there any mention of Paul in any of the family conversations? I'm trying to remember if
yeah,
like Eli's dad says anything about Paul or his mother or anything.
it's when Eli attacks his dad.
Okay,
And
got
he's
it.
like, it was Paul.
That's right. All right.
But then, like, even that, you could be like, oh, Paul's like his other personality or something
Right.
like that.
Yeah, I had actually never considered that until you brought this up. So that's interesting. That's really cool.
That family in general actually kind of confuses me, because they weren't originally going to be twins, but it kind of works, and I actually like the duality of thinking if that is if it is in fact two sides of one coin. I wonder what Paul ended up doing with that $500. I'm sure he's living large somewhere, but it's the daughter. Like, I mean, first of all, she's a gold digger. She goes up to HW, and she's like, "So how much money we gonna make from this?" And then she sticks with him their whole lives. But the father, you got to think, must be a somewhat religious man if his son is leading this church, and he apparently beats his kids, and then it's a very patriarchal house. He just kind of says women get out, and he just seems to be kind of a bad person who is ready to go, and sell his soul. Not that he knew he was getting swindled or was really ready to sell, but he was a flawed character. Obviously, Paul and Eli had their issues, and then just the misogyny of all of them. I don't know what to make of the Sunday family. They seem like this nice family who is just like, well, for a few $1,000s, our lives would be a lot better. Who cares if we're kind of getting swindled? But then I don't think we get enough of anyone besides Eli to kind of understand why that dynamic is, and why we get such little tastes of three other characters in the family, but we don't really understand where that went. Or maybe I'm missing something, but how does that become what we get out of Eli, and how it really is the catalyst that sets off the movie. So that family has some unanswered questions, but you know what? They sounds like they all end up rich, off of HW. So whatever.
I think one of the things I think I'm just really sensitive to this in movies, but anytime a character is named Abel, it feels really purposeful, and that's I believe that's the father's name. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's Abel Sunday, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess like in my mind, I've always just thought of Abel Sunday, and maybe by extension, other members of that family being this sacrifice to the stepping stone essentially for both Eli and Daniel to launch into what they actually want and stuff like that. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I think that I think there are some interesting questions and interesting like things to dive in there. But yeah, it's one of those things that like just because of how biblical symbolism is scattered through this movie, and again, it's just something about the name Abel. Whenever I see it, I'm like, you don't just name someone Abel unless you're like naming him after Abel. Probably, I don't know. I'm sure there are plenty of Abels, but yeah, I just that's what I always triggers in my mind.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I want to spend a couple quick minutes before we're done, just some quick asides on Paul Thomas Anderson and then Daniel Day-Lewis. More than we've kind of talked. Paul Thomas Anderson on Mark Maron's podcast. These were kind of his key things he said about the movie. What's the difference between survival and ambition? Which I love that is such a fine line. And then when asked about the movie's meaning, they describe it as he ducked the question, but he says family, power, black gold. But when I think about the movie, I think about Daniel and his boy. And I think that echoes a lot of what we've talked about is all of those dynamics bring out what actually matters. And for him, it's the money, but then the loss is actually what deteriorates him. Sure. And what's interesting about Paul Thomas Anderson is I believe his two movies before this were Magnolia and Punch Drunk Love. And so apparently Daniel Day-Lewis really likes Punch Drunk Love, so that's cool. But it's an interesting turn for him. I'm just wondering, do you guys have other favorites by him? He's considered one of our great directors now. Do you have any other broad thoughts on PTA?
Yeah, I think Punch Drunk Love was actually the first movie of his I saw, and I was really not prepared to watch it. I really didn't get it. I was like, this is weird and I boring, and Philip Seymour Hoffman is in Provo, but it doesn't look anything like Provo. No, so it was but that has become one of my probably in my top 3 Paul Thomas Anderson movies. I really love that movie, and I really love Adam Sandler's performance in that. Mm-hmm. But I guess, and then the other two would be There Will Be Blood, and obviously which we've talked about, and then The Master. I really love The Master. It's again, it's one of those movies. It was shot on 70 millimeter, so it's got this really awesome epic feel to like every shot. And Philip Seymour Hoffman's performance in The Master is up there for me. It's like it's close for me to a lot of like the great performances in film, especially over the last little while. But yeah, I really enjoy Paul Thomas Anderson for sure.
Yeah, the only movie he's done that I don't like as much as most people is, well, and it's obviously not his best received, is Inherent Vice. Mm. But Boogie Nights is kind of obviously completely different story, but it's kind of look back a little similar like Clueless, where people at first it was like it's this big porn thing, and obviously there's another level, but what are we really doing? And now it's like sort of beloved. Yeah. And then we can kind of transfer over to Daniel Day-Lewis here. His most recent movie is Phantom Thread, which was Daniel Day-Lewis's final performance, 3 of which are 3 of his, I think he only made 7 movies since like 1995 or something, and 3 of them are with Paul Thomas Anderson. One of them is Lincoln, and he's very known for being pretty dang method. And like, I think you gotta love it. It's not like the career I'd choose, or someone who I think I'd be very, not intimidated, but just like, I don't know how well he must gel so differently with such certain wonderfully creative people. But yeah, I don't think one sticks out where I just think he's incredible, but I don't know if I get joy from his performance. Did you guys have any key thoughts you want to talk about with, and he's only 62, a little younger than I thought, but yeah, on Daniel Day-Lewis?
Look, the man.
Don't say it. We know you fucking hate Daniel Day-Lewis, Tyler, and I'm fucking tired of it.
I'm just saying his performances are incredible. Like, if you just go watch scenes from Lincoln, Phantom Thread, and There Will Be Blood, you can see his diverse ability that he has to just fucking nail it. And obviously he's well known for being a method actor. I think method actors are assholes. I think that it's kind of interesting to have him play a character who is kind of almost like the cost of success and the cost of fame type of character, like Daniel Plainview, because I feel like that's how method actors are. And not all of them are phenomenal performers, but I mean, there have been some phenomenal performances because of the effort that went into method acting. But every story you hear about them is they fucking suck to be around during that time.
Yeah. There's also like life destructive performances that we know of from method acting. And here's the thing. So he retired. He can't be like, unless obviously he's probably invested, but even if he made like 10 mil a piece for his last 3 movies, like, can he be that, like, he might not be that rich, right? A very private man. I don't know. I just think it's so odd for him to just do that. You know,
well, I'm sure that he has other avenues of that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? I'm sure he's been he's fine. Don't rush out and donate money to Daniel Day-Lewis's GoFundMe. The dude's fine.
Daniel Day-Lewis, if you need a GoFundMe or you need to star in a Transformers movie, I got you for both. Okay.
Daniel Day-Lewis is Optimus Prime.
That would be the greatest left turn in his...
What kind of method acting goes into being Optimus Prime?
He just
floating
lives
through space
of
for so long.
He doesn't
so
speak.
long.
He just honks at people with his mouth.
It's whenever he finally gets his order at Starbucks, he just turns around and says, "Roll out,"
and then like folds up on the ground, like shimmies out.
That man has been doing his yoga, and it shows. You can see it.
I mean, just take that scene of him crawling on his back that you envision from There Will Be Blood, and put some wheels on his side, and he's good to go.
I will say a few times in this movie, I really thought his character sounded like really drunk Ron Burgundy, and it threw me off just a little bit. It just
fuck you. I'm gonna hear that next time I watch this movie. And
I need to go find a key scene that I can send you guys, but I promise you, it's there. Okay.
I wanted to ask. I should have looked this up. Is so the guy that plays his fake brother in the movie, is that the guy that was in The Mummy with?
It's Benny.
Benny.
Okay. I've been waiting to say this. Are you ready?
Yes.
He was in a movie called Exorcism at 60,000 feet, and I kind of want to see it.
Sounds amazing.
Not 30,000 feet, 60,000 feet.
Well, demons get their real strength once you pass 50,000 feet, so it makes sense. You don't.
There's Fortress, so I'd be a little scared of that.
Man,
but yes, he was in The Mummy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, the whole time all I could think about was like, man, we just need like a wrong side of the river reference throughout this movie somewhere.
Did you guys have any other final thoughts on There Will Be Blood before we take a preview at next week and give some recommendations?
This movie's okay. 3 out of 5.
This movie might be like it's too good. Like, it's hard to grasp all the little things that you can do. It's beautiful. What I want to say that the claustrophobic shots, being not feeling claustrophobic, is also incredible to me. Otherwise, okay.
Oh, sorry. I do want to give a shout out to that. I mean, we kind of mentioned it. The scene with that you mentioned that you saw like in film class. I feel like there's a reason they show that scene in film class where the well explodes. I dissected the living shit out of that scene for a storyboarding class I was in.
Ooh.
And I had to do like every shot. I love how much movement there is in this movie with the camera. There's a lot of moving shots, and just if you go with like, no one's gonna do this, but this is what I had to do. I had to go and pause every single cut and every single change, watch every single shot, and then I had to write a paragraph on why that shot was chosen to describe that thing. And just doing that gave me such an appreciation for the cinematography of this movie, because every single thing is chosen so purposely to really illustrate a point and a lot of subcontext that really just nails that whole scene. And yeah, and that scene itself is the thing I discussed earlier, where all the parts work together perfectly, and that's kind of the magnum opus of this film, is that scene where all those things are clicking all at once.
I love the wide shots before and after that scene, and just we kind of skip ahead, and they have multiple rigs, and just his little weird office sitting in the middle of nothing. Like you said, it's just everything works and everything speaks so well in those sequences over his the oil fields out there in Little Boston, California. I also wanted to say we're sponsored this episode by OSHA. Don't let your kids work on your oil rig. They will go deaf.
Do you know what's so funny is like at the job that I have now, part of our training, like it's just UDOT's like their policy that everyone needs to be OSHA certified. So that was part of like my onboarding at my job. And that was, I haven't watched this movie in a couple years. And so like watching it when he first goes down that well, I'm like, he hasn't shored those walls up well enough. They should definitely only be 6 feet down at this point. And fuck, that guy's in trouble.
Oh boy.
No hard hats, no high vis vests. Just what the hell is going on here?
Yeah, they didn't slope the sides at all. He's just going straight fucking down 90-degree angle walls. This guy's asking for it.
His harness is weak sauce. Oh wait, what harness?
Yeah, if he hears the megaphone of an inspector at any point, he is fucked. He will never financially recover from the fees he'll have to pay.
Ruining small businesses. OSHA. Tyler, why don't you tell people where they can communicate with us and follow us along to see what's coming next?
Yeah, you can email us at rewatchersonthepod@gmail.com, where I just recently learned that Tyler McKinley subscribed to our YouTube channel. Thanks, Tyler McKinley. And secondly, you can reach out to us on Twitter or Instagram. Our handle is at RewatchersPod in both of those places.
Dude,
come hang out with us.
And then Tyler, you picked our movie for next week, right? Why don't you just give us a little teaser?
I was told to pick something happy and uplifting, so I'm going to pick Pan's Labyrinth. And
nothing better than that.
I just can't not pick it because that was another. I was very fortunate for all your guys' picks because, I mean, 3 of the movies we've watched, the 2 movies that Tyler and Justin picked are in my top 5. So that's wonderful. And Pan's Labyrinth is also in there. And it's just a wonderful, in my opinion, far and away, Guillermo del Toro's best work by a lot. So, yeah.
I'm going to have to stand for Shape of Water next week. But Pan's Labyrinth is also on Netflix, by the way. So if you're listening and you're like, oh, I want to watch that before we talk about it, watch it on Netflix. Cool. We're going to take a quick breaky break, and then we'll give you some recommendations. Welcome back to the Rewatchers on the Pod. This is the end of the podcast where we give you some recommendations for things you can watch during this this beautiful, lonely, boring ass time in our lives, which we also talked about might be a profound, large event we look back on and think, wow, that was a big deal. But really, we were just all sitting in our rooms and watching recommendations from the Rewatchers Pod. Tyler Harris, why don't you kick us off?
Okay. I have a couple things. I have a game and a show. The show is old, and I'm pretty sure I recommended it on like one of our first episodes at some point. But the Netflix show Dead to Me has finally announced that their second season is coming next month. And so I decided to go back and watch the first season. And Dead to Me is just delightful trash TV that is, it's fucking manipulative, and it is insane in ways that are not super plausible, but it is just a fucking joy to watch. And it is a show with Christina Applegate and Linda Cardellini, who basically the whole setup is that Christina Applegate's husband has recently died. He was hit when he was out running. He was hit by, it was basically a hit and run, and he was killed. And she meets Linda Cardellini's character at this like grief counseling, like grief support group thing, and they kind of become friends. And then just fucking everything goes to shit. It's just I don't really, there's not like much I can say about it. That you should just watch it. The thing I love about Dead to Me is that every episode, every single episode, I love the structure of this show. Every single episode kind of comes to a somewhat nice conclusion at the end, and then just throws the most fucking wild ass like discovery and cliffhanger in at the end of the episode. It's like genetically engineered to make you watch the next episode, and it's really great. And season 2 is coming next month, so now's the perfect time to jump in and watch it. The second thing I'm going to recommend is a little video game called Final Fantasy VII: Remake. And Final Fantasy VII Remake is a remake of probably, oh man, it's definitely my top 5 favorite video games of all time, Final Fantasy VII, which was released 23 years ago on the PlayStation 1, and now has been updated. Well, at least the first 5 hours of that game have been updated and expanded into a 50-hour video game that you can enjoy on only on the PlayStation 4. Actually, I was going to say on any modern video game console, but that's not true. And I will say I've only played about 6 hours of it so far. I'm going to be playing a lot more of it after we're done here. But if you like Final Fantasy or want to like Final Fantasy or Final Fantasy VII, you absolutely need to go and get this game. I cried at the menu screen. Like when the menu screen came up, I was like, oh my, they fucking did it. They did it. And then the opening cutscene played out, and there's just a whole section of that is just a shot for shot recreation of the opening of Final Fantasy VII. And I was just beside myself. I like once I had control, I just paused the game and I was like, I need to go get a fucking drink, and I did, and I like it took a 15-minute break before I dove in. But man, I'm in love with it. Like I can't say a bad thing about it. I know there are bad things about it, but it just man, it's so fucking good. That's all. Just go play Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, I am also playing said remake.
Oh shit.
My take is very different because I never got to play the original because I never had a PlayStation. And I borrowed it from Tyler Harris one time a few years ago, and the old version is just hard for me to play because you move so slow, and I couldn't take it. But yeah, so it's weird not knowing the story. A lot of this, I know some of the story points just from internet videos and stuff over the years, but it is a really pretty game. I like something this game does really well. It's just a weird thing that I like is. Like you're in this undercity of like this big dystopian kind of steamish, punkish, but also not city, and like the people who live in the slums have like the rich people living on a big platform above them. The way they really do distance and like atmospheric perspective is really convincing in this game. They do space really well, which I haven't seen done that convincingly in a video game before, and so. Just the world itself is so jaw-dropping to be in, and just to see these characters who I've seen everywhere for years, just on promotional material and whatever it may be, look this modernized and this good is great. I love the game and I'm really enjoying it. I definitely have some gripes with it, which mostly stem from my hatred for some Japanese animation trope things that are thrown in there. And a lot of that just for me break the tone, its own tone that it sets sometimes, as well as something that also is a little bit fourth wall breaking for me is the main characters have some fun designs. They're dressed really wacky, but then everyone else in the world is dressed pretty normal. And so like there's this big terrorist attack that they commit and they blow up this thing, and then they're on a train and they're like trying to be inconspicuous. And one of the guys in your party has a giant Gatling gun strapped to his fucking arm. And everyone else in the train is just in like business suits and casual wear. And it's like, I wonder who's fleeing the scene. But yeah, so the cutscenes are a little that's not like a huge deal. It's just a funny thing that I noticed. But yeah, I'm having a good time with it. I also highly recommend it.
Just before we go, I do need to. There's a character in this. So because they're stretching this out, they're exploring tons of characters that you really don't know fucking anything about in the original game. One of which is Jessie, who
Oh,
is
yeah.
the thirstiest female character I've ever seen in a video game. And I was like, man, this girl, she just fucking needs to be loved. And then there's a mission pretty early on where you learn this is. I felt personally attacked. You learn early on that she is an actress who is trying to make it in the theater, and I just felt personally attacked in a way that a video game has never done. And fuck you. That's
And
all.
so the natural tale of going from failed actress to becoming an eco-terrorist
Yeah.
is just the most common thread. But yeah,
you'd be shocked at the Venn diagram of my friends that fall in the center of that. I'm like right on the cusp, so.
Something I did want to mention about that is the pacing is a little rough for me, but that drawn out pacing does give us time to really get into some surprising character moments that I was not expecting that are actually, despite some of the weird performance things that I hate, really some great character writing and some great stuff that you really dive into with some interesting ways that the different characters' kind of backstories and motivations kind of collide in really fun and interesting ways, and it's definitely really quirky, but I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
Sweet. I got a question because my roommate is playing this and he's legitimately played it for 2 days straight. Are there a lot of cutscenes? Because I swear every time I walk out there, it's a cutscene and not him actually playing the game.
Oh yeah,
There's a lot.
I feel like there's more than Death Stranding, and Death Stranding had some long cutscenes.
Why haven't they tried to adapt that series into a movie, or have they?
I can't wait for anyone who knows anything about Final Fantasy VII to hear that just sweet innocent question. This is a fucking. It's okay. I love Final Fantasy VII. Is a fucking nightmare of a story. It would not work in a movie. They did so years ago. They did like a CG follow-up movie that was like set after the events of Final Fantasy VII. And even that was like 2 hours long. It was so fucking convoluted, but it just had the coolest fights in the world. But yeah, I mean, they've made one other attempt at adapting Final Fantasy to the silver screen, and it was Final Fantasy Spirits Within, which is a fucking nightmare of a movie.
It's one of those like animated, like supposed to look live action movies from the early 2000s.
Yeah, but yeah.
I'm so sorry that I asked. Justin, what can you recommend to us besides Doom Eternal?
Well, thankfully, I actually have started something else this week. I finished. I'll keep playing Doom occasionally, but I've pretty much done everything in the game that I think I want to do at this point. But I started playing a game called Divinity: Original Sin 2.
Fucking,
I can't remember if
yeah.
that's the
Hate
right
that
order
game.
for all those words. Oh, really? Actually, that doesn't surprise me.
I just suck at it.
Oh,
I
okay.
fucking love that game.
I've only played it for just a few hours. I think I'm at the first area that is like right after the tutorial, like that Joy Island, I think is what it's called or something. I don't know. And so far, I'm having a good time. It's for those who aren't familiar with it, it's kind of like if you were to just play Dungeons and Dragons in a video game, kind of like I don't know. There's even like a narrator in the game as you like interact with the environment or items or whatever. A narrator will start talking about whatever it is that you're interacting with. Like you look in the barrel and there's nothing there, or I mean, it's not that um, like micromanaged, but yeah, it's a good time so far. I'm interested to see where it goes. I have never really played a game like this before, where you like I've played turn-based combat games before, but not something so PC centric like this game is.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
Did you create a character or did you do one of the legacy characters?
Yeah, so I'm playing as the elf girl. I can't remember Sebel,
Oh,
Sebel
right.
or
Yeah.
whatever her
Okay.
name
Cool.
is. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I didn't create a character.
I think that's the right choice for sure.
I looked it up and everyone was saying like you got to pick one of the actual characters that has like a story to them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the writing throughout that game is pretty fantastic. But particularly the storylines around those legacy characters that they built are really fun. So
Cool. Cool. Well, I'm having a good time so far. I'm excited to see where things go. Kind of jumping into a new unknown fantasy world is a good time since I know absolutely nothing about this. So it's a lot of fun. One other quick thing I just wanted to bring up as far as like a recommendation. There's a subreddit called Perfectly Cut Screams that if you're not sub to, you need to be. It's it's one of my favorite subreddits out there. And then just this week, I found out that there are two other subreddits. There's one called Perfectly Cut Yeets, and then there's another one. Oh shoot, now I'm blanking on the name.
I'm looking these up right now.
It was just like this thread where it was like basically the same
Perfectly
post.
cut asthma.
Perfect. Yeah, there we go. Perfectly Cut Asthma. Yeah. So Perfectly Cut Yeets and Perfectly Cut Asthma are not quite as well maintained or as populated as Perfectly Cut Screams, but they all kind of have like their own specialized content that is pretty good. Most of the time, you'll see similar things posted, cross posted on all three of them, but it, it's really good. I would strongly recommend going and check those out.
Man, Perfectly Cut Screams like drives me crazy. Like it yeah, it's like I want to hear the full scream. Yeah, I don't know. It leaves me unsatisfied.
Oh man, I love it. Most like I mean this is the way that Reddit is. Like most of the time it's just garbage content that you see, but the highs on that subreddit are they're really good.
Coolio. I'm spending a lot more time on Reddit lately, and it is a scary, scary place, but lots of fun. I will go real quick. So there's a movie that just dropped on Netflix called Tiger Tail, and it is written and directed by Alan Yang. He's known for being one of the primary writers on Parks and Rec, and he did Master of None and a show called Forever with Maya Rudolph and that one guy. What's his name from SNL? Fred Armisen. So really good, but he's known for kind of comedy, and this is the true story. Well, he's messed with a little bit, but it's essentially the true story of his father immigrating from Taiwan, and most of it is in Taiwanese and Mandarin. But it's only 90 minutes, and it is really good. And so for a comedy guy who he is not fluent in those languages, and he did this with an all Asian cast, it is really cool to see. And I think just because if you kind of know his background, it is an interesting and worthy watch. And then the other one, I'm just going to go for this. I've never felt the need to recommend it because it's so old, but Survivor right now is in their 40th season, and it's called Winners at War. It's the first time they've brought back all winners. So 20 different winners from Survivor are playing, and it's been incredible so far. But it's also, I've been going back on these mini dives to all these old seasons, and I'll watch probably 6 of the 14 episodes in between that and going online and watching just kind of the what happened last time. I've been able to get a really good sense of strategy and stuff. And I think a lot of people look back on Survivor because it really was part of the reality TV boom, along with American Idol and The Bachelor. And it's just the show that's still on. And but it's something that still gets 10 million viewers on network TV, which is pretty incredible. And 36 or 37 seasons are on Hulu right now. And
God, wow.
They're 13 to 16 episodes depending on the season, and I just get so much joy. And in the beginning, it's all about survival, and then it turns more into human interaction, and now it's pretty much pure gameplay. It's almost like a sport. But I have not looked forward to a show and wanted to watch it as soon as humanly possible, probably since Game of Thrones. And seeing all the winners come back has made me kind of go on this nostalgia trip. And now that I'm on the Reddit, coincidentally, I'm meeting all these people who are like, hey, I came to Survivor at this point, and this is why I'm interested now, or what I went back and found. And so, I don't know. I think a lot of people write it off, and I get why. But it's something I've really enjoyed. I've watched every episode ever, and there's seasons where I'm much more passive. It's not great, but at least half the seasons are really gripping and interesting. And it is very unique to what has expanded to and become reality TV. So I figured during this quarantine, I've invested more time in it. And so now I can guilt-free just tell people like it is a worthy recommendation of something to spend more of your time on. And I've also been watching it while doing puzzles, which I recommended last week. And I continue to say, just do a fucking puzzle. Just make it happen. It's worth it. It's so satisfying. When two pieces fit together, it's almost like you're finding friendship. And that's pretty rare, you know? Gwen, why don't you wrap us up here with our recommendations?
Well, I'm going to second that puzzle recommendation because I finally got mine and it's just so relaxing and joyful. But I haven't still managed to start anything new or continue anything new for myself. But I have a recommendation for our vast audience of parents, and that is stories.audible.com. So Audible has a ton of their content for free right now because everyone's stuck at home. And my kids are they play pretty well together. They don't fight a lot, but this week has been kind of terrible. And I don't really blame them. It's been a hard week, but there's been so much fighting. But yesterday I sat them down with a 3-hour book on this stories.audible.com. And they sat there for the entire 3 hours and didn't fight. When it was time for lunch, I just stuck food in front of them and they ate while they listened. And it was the most glorious break I've had since being stuck at home. So yeah, stories.audible.com. And there's like classic content on there. There's like Anne of Green Gables and Winnie the Pooh. And the one I had my kids listen to is called For Everywhere, which was some newfangled unicorn princess. And there's a rock band. And I don't really care because they listened. So yeah.
That's cool. And there's a lot of stuff like that they're releasing extra stuff for free right now. So even if you're not an Audible or a Prime member, there's a lot of I have 6 siblings, all of which have a bunch of kids. They kind of talk on our family chat a lot about all that stuff, similar to that, or whatever it be, an iPad game or something that are free right now during this time where children need to be entertained a little bit more. So that's really cool. Sweet. Well, next week, Pan's Labyrinth, and thanks so much for coming and hanging out with us. My name is Mitchell Marshall, and my co-host from East to West.
Fuck.
What a douche. Just say your names.
Tyler Harris.
Tyler McKinley.
Gwen Hammer.
Justin Hammer.
Nailed it. Thanks, guys. See you next week.